Huainanzi Chapter 14 Cavernous and undifferentiated heaven and earth, chaotic and inchoate uncarved block, not yet created and fashioned into things, this we call the Grand One. One together emerging from this unity, so that each acquired its distinctive qualities, there were birds, there were fish. There were animals, this we call the differentiation of things. Regions became distinguished according to their categories, things became differentiated according to their groupings. Their natures and destinies were dissimilar, all acquired their physical forms in the realm of being. Separate and not interconnected, differentiated as the myriad things, none could return to their ancestor. 2. Thus, when animated, things are said to be alive, when dead, things are said to be expired. In both cases, they are things. It is not that there was nothing that made things into things, rather, what made things into things is not among the myriad things. 14/132/10, 13 In antiquity, at the grand beginning, 3 human beings came to life in non-being and acquired a physical form in being. Having a physical form, human beings came under the control of things. But those who can return to that from which they were born, as if they had not yet acquired a physical form, are called the genuine. For the genuine are those who have not yet begun to differentiate from the Grand One. 14/132/15, 1614.2 The sage does not for the sake of a name become a corpse, does not for the sake of stratagem store things up, does not for the sake of affairs take on responsibility, does not for the sake of wisdom become a ruler. 5 The sage dwells in the formless, moves in the traceless, and wanders in the beginningless. He does not initiate things for the sake of good fortune, nor does he begin things to deal with misfortune. He remains in emptiness and non-being and moves when he cannot do otherwise. For those who desire good fortune, sometimes suffer misfortune, and those who desire benefit, sometimes suffer harm. 6 Thus, those who are secure through non-action become endangered when they lose that by which they are secure, i.e., non-action. Those who are well ordered through non-intervention become disordered when they lose that by which they are well ordered. 14/132/18, 2014.3 Stars arrayed in the heavens are bright. Therefore people point at them. Rightness arrayed in one's moral potency is obvious. Therefore people observe it. What people point at has a manifestation because it moves, what people observe leaves a trace because it acts. When movements have manifestations, they will be criticized, when actions have traces, they will be appraised. Thus, the sage conceals his brilliance in the formless and hides his traces in non-action. 14/132/20, 2214.4 Prince King G7 perished by the sword, Yi died by a cudgel made of peach wood, Zilu was dismembered in Wei, and Suqin died because of his eloquence. There are no people who do not cherish their strengths and despise their weaknesses. Yet, while they indulge their strengths, their weaknesses become pronounced. So that while what they cherish assumes definite form, what they despise seems to leave not a trace. Thus, the power of tigers and leopards attracts archers. The agility of monkeys and apes invites pursuit. 8 Those who can cherish their weaknesses and despise their strengths can join in discussions of the highest principles. 14/132/24, 2814.5 Those who trust themselves cannot be swayed by slander or flattery. Those whose knowledge is sufficient cannot be enticed by power or profit. Thus, those who fully comprehend the genuine qualities of their nature do not strive to accomplish what their nature cannot accomplish. Those who fully comprehend the genuine qualities of their destiny do not concern themselves with what their destiny cannot control. For those who fully comprehend the way, things are not enough to disorder their inner harmony. 914/133/1, 314.6 John He said, I have never heard of a ruler who was ordered in his person yet found his state disordered. Nor have I heard of a ruler who was disordered in his person yet found his state to be well ordered. 14/133/5 14.7 If the carpenter's square is not true, it cannot create a square. If the compass is not true, It cannot create a circle. Your person is the carpenter's square and compass of all your undertakings. I have not heard that it was possible to correct others by perverting yourself. 14/133/5, 614.8 Trace to the source heaven's decree, cultivate the techniques of the mind, regulate likes and dislikes, follow your disposition and nature, and the way of governing oneself will come through. If you trace to the source heaven's decree, you will not be deluded by bad or good fortune. If you cultivate the techniques of the mind, you will not be unrestrained in your happiness and anger. If you regulate your likes and dislikes, you will not covet what is useless. If you follow your disposition and nature, your desires will not exceed the appropriate limits. If you are not deluded by bad or good fortune, your movement and stillness will comply with the inherent principles of things. If you are not unrestrained in your happiness and anger, your rewards and punishments will not be partial. If you do not covet what is useless, you will not allow your desires to harm your nature. If your desires do not exceed the appropriate limits, you will nurture your nature and know contentment. As a general rule, these four things cannot be sought after in what is outside the self, nor can you bestow them on others. You can obtain them only by returning to the self. 1014/133/7, 1114.9 The world cannot be acted on by knowledge, cannot be discerned through perceptiveness, cannot be governed by intervening, cannot be subjugated through humaneness, and cannot be vanquished through strength. These five are all aspects of human talent. If your potency does not flourish, you will not be able to perfect even one of them. Where potency is established, these five will not be endangered. But where these five appear, potency will not be established. Thus, if you grasp the way, stupidity will be more than sufficient; if you lose the way, knowledge will be insufficient to the task. 14/133/13, 1514.10 When crossing a river, if you lack the technique 11 of swimming, you will assuredly drown despite your strength. If you possess the technique of swimming, you will assuredly cross to the other side despite your weakness. Then again, how much better to rely on taking a boat. 14/133/17 14.11 The root of governance lies in bringing security to the people. The root of bringing security to the people lies in using them sufficiently. The root of using them sufficiently lies in not taking them from their seasonal tasks. The root of not taking them from their seasonal tasks lies in decreasing what they need to attend to. The root of decreasing what they need to attend to lies in moderating their desire. The root of moderating their desire lies in returning to their nature. The root of returning to their nature lies in eradicating what burdens their mind. If you eradicate what burdens their mind, they will become empty. Being empty, they will become balanced. Balance is the beginning of the way. Emptiness is the abode of the way. 14/133/19, 2114.12 Those who can take possession of the world assuredly do not forfeit their states. Those who can take possession of a state assuredly do not forfeit their families. Those who can govern their family assuredly do not neglect their persons. Those who can cultivate their persons assuredly do not forget their minds. Those who can trace their minds to the source assuredly do not injure their natures. Those who can keep their natures intact assuredly are not confused about the way. Thus the Master of Broad Perfection 12 said, reverently preserve what lies inside, comprehensively shut out what lies outside. Too much knowledge gives rise to defeat. Do not look. Do not listen. Embrace the spirit by means of stillness, and your physical form will correct itself. 13 To be unable to grasp it within yourself and yet to be able to know it in others, this has never been possible. Thus the Changes says, tie it up in a sack. No blame, no praise. 1414/134/1, 414.13 Those who can succeed as hegemons and kings assuredly achieve victory. Those who can vanquish their enemies assuredly are powerful. Those who can be powerful assuredly use the strength of others. Those who can use the strength of others assuredly win the people's hearts. Those who can win the people's hearts assuredly understand their own hearts. Those who can understand their own hearts assuredly are soft and weak. Strength triumphs when others' strength does not compare to your own. Should you encounter those whose strength is equal to your own, you will be resisted. But softness triumphs over those who exceed you in strength, because its power is immeasurable. Thus, only the sage can accomplish great victories where most people would suffer defeat. 1514/134/6, 914.14 Those who excel at swimming do not study how to move a boat with a pole yet find boats easy to use. 16 Those who possess strong muscles do not study how to ride a horse yet find horses easy to mount. Those who look lightly upon taking possession of the world do not allow their person to become entangled by external things, thus they can occupy such a position. When the great King Danfu resided in Bin, the Di people attacked him. He offered them skins, silks, pearls, and jades, but they did not heed him. Danfu then bid farewell to his elders and moved his residence to the foot of Mount Chi. Carrying their young and supporting their old, the common people followed Danfu, and subsequently he established a state there. By this principle, is it not fitting that the house of Zhou attain the world in 4 generations? Those who do nothing deliberately to take possession of the world assuredly are those who can rule the world. 1714/134/11, 1514.15 Frost, snow, rain, and dew bring life and death to the myriad things. Heaven does not act deliberately in such matters, yet heaven is revered for accomplishing them. Slaving over civil documents and worrying about legal decrees, managing offices and keeping the people in order, such things are the tasks of the officials. The ruler does not intervene in such matters, yet he is honored for accomplishing them. The one who cultivated the fields and reclaimed the wastelands was Lord Millet, the one who opened up the Yellow River and dredged the Yangtze was you, the one who heard court cases and settled them appropriately was Gao Yao, yet the one who enjoyed a sagely reputation for accomplishing them was Ya. Thus if you rely on the way in directing the world, even though you may be devoid of ability, you will invariably use those who are capable. But if you do not rely on the way, though you may possess much skill and artistry, they will not bring you any benefit. 1814/134/15, 1814.16 Suppose you are crossing the river in a twin-hulled boat 19 and an empty boat comes from another direction and crashes into your boat and overturns it. Even if you have a violent temper, you certainly will not exhibit an angry expression. But if there had been someone in the other boat, you might first have shouted, "Trim the sail," and next, "Stay to one side." And if you had called 2 or 3 times with no response, certainly a stream of insulting words would have followed in the wake of the boat. Thus, although in the former case you would not be angry, in the latter case you would be angry, although in the former case you would be empty of emotion, in the latter case you would be full. But as for those who are able to empty themselves of emotions and drift through the world, who could criticize them? 2014/134/20, 2214.17 If you disregard the way and rely on knowledge, invariably you will be endangered. If you abandon technique and employ talent, invariably you will encounter difficulties. There have been those who perished because their desires were numerous, there have never been those who were endangered because they were free from desires. There have been those who desired order but suffered disorder, there have never been those who preserved what is constant and yet lost their state. Thus, while knowledge alone will not suffice for you to avoid trouble, stupidity alone will not suffice to jeopardize your peace. If you preserve these distinctions and act in accordance with these principles, when you lose, you will not feel vexed, and when you succeed, you will not feel happy. For when you accomplish something, it is not because you have acted deliberately, and when you acquire something, it is not because you have sought after something. What you receive, you take without consciously accepting, what you give, you confer without consciously distributing. If you nourish life in accordance with spring, and you kill in accordance with autumn, those to whom you grant life will not view you as exerting moral potency, and those whom you subject to death will not view you as expressing anger. Thus you will have come close to the way. 14/134/24, 28 14.18 The sage does not do things that are wrong yet does not hate those who do wrong to him. He cultivates moral potency worthy of praise yet does not seek the praise of others. He cannot prevent ill fortune from arising yet trusts that he personally will not summon it. He cannot assure that good fortune will invariably befall him yet trusts that he personally will not yield to it. Thus if misfortune befalls him, because it is not something he sought to bring about, should he fail, he feels no anxiety. If good fortune befalls him, because it is not something he sought to bring about, should he succeed, he feels no pride. He knows that what determines bad and good fortune is beyond his control. Thus, he is joyful abiding at his leisure and governs through non-action. 2114/134/30, 14/135/3 14.19 The sage preserves what he already has and does not seek after what he has not yet attained. If he seeks after what he has not yet attained, he will lose what he already has. If he cultivates what he has within himself, what he desires will be obtained. 22 Thus, those who employ an army first make sure they cannot be defeated, then await the enemy that can be defeated. Those who rule a state, first make sure that it cannot be captured, then await the enemy that can be captured. 14/135/3, 5:14.20 Shun cultivated himself on Mount Li, and all within the four seas were transformed by his influence. King Wen cultivated himself on Mount Qi, and the world was moved by his example. Had Shun hastened after the benefit of ruling the world, had he abandoned the way of self-cultivation, he would not have been able to preserve himself. How then would he have been able to take possession of even an inch of territory? Thus, if your governance is not yet secure enough to avoid disorder, and yet you intervene to create order, you will certainly encounter danger. If your conduct is not yet secure enough to avoid censure, and yet you anxiously seek to establish a reputation, you will certainly fail in your attempt to do so. There is no good fortune greater than being free of calamity. There is no benefit better than avoiding death. 2314/135/5, 8:14.21 The thing about movement is if you do not gain, you will lose, if you do not succeed, you will fail, if you do not benefit, you will suffer harm. These things are dangerous, those who follow such a course are in peril. Thus, Qin won victory over the wrong tribe but was defeated at Mount Yao. Chu won victory over the central states but was defeated at Bajie. Thus, the way does not allow for seeking benefit through force but does allow for avoiding harm through tranquility. Thus, constantly avoid ill fortune, but do not constantly seek good fortune. Constantly avoid blame, but do not constantly seek achievements. 2414/135/8, 10:14.22 The sage has no conscious deliberations, he has no fixed ideas. He neither welcomes what arrives nor sends off what departs. Though others occupy positions north, south, east, and west, he alone is established at the center. Thus, he encounters various crooked ways, but he does not lose his rectitude. The world flows to and fro, but he alone does not leave his ancestral shrine and walled city. Thus, he does not encourage what he likes, nor does he avoid what he dislikes, he simply follows heaven's way. He does not initiate, nor does he personally assume authority, he simply complies with heaven's principles. He does not make plans in advance, nor does he miss the opportune moment, he simply complies with heaven's times. He does not seek to obtain things, nor does he shun good fortune, he simply goes along with heaven's patterns. He does not seek after what he does not possess, nor does he lose what he has obtained. Inwardly he experiences no unexpected misfortune, outwardly he experiences no unexpected good fortune. Since neither ill fortune nor good fortune arises, how can others harm him? 2514/135/10, 14:14.23 If you do good, you will be admired. If you do ill, you will be criticized. Admiration generates honor. Criticism generates resentment. Thus the techniques of the way cannot be used to advance and seek a reputation but can be used to retreat and cultivate one's person. They cannot be used to obtain benefit but can be used to distance oneself from harm. Thus the sage does not rely on his conduct to seek a reputation, does not rely on his knowledge to demonstrate his praiseworthiness. He imitates and complies with the natural so that nothing interferes with him. 2614/135/16, 1814.244 Thought is not superior to techniques, acting is not superior to potency, intervening is not superior to the way. If you act deliberately, there will be things you do not achieve. If you seek after things, there will be things you do not obtain. Though human beings possess their limits, there is nothing the way does not penetrate. 27 If you compete with the way, you will suffer misfortune. Thus the Ode says, without recognizing them, without knowing them, comply with the Thearch's regulations. 2814/135/20, 2114.25 To have knowledge but not act purposively is at one with the way of no knowledge, to have ability but not intervene is at one with the potency of no ability. This knowledge is such that only when someone comes to report to him do we become aware that he has already acted. This ability is such that only after someone comes to employ him do we become aware that he has already done it. When having knowledge resembles no knowledge, when having ability resembles no ability, the patterns of the way are rectified. Thus, when your merit spreads over the world but does not evoke praise, and when your beneficence extends to future ages but does not earn fame, the patterns of the way will pervade the world, and human artifice will be destroyed. 2914/135/21, 2414.26 Reputation and the way cannot simultaneously be brilliant. When humans cherish a reputation, the way is of no use. When the way prevails over humans, reputation vanishes. The way and humans compete for priority. What embellishes the human diminishes the way. When the human is embellished and the way vanishes, danger is not far off. Thus, when an age enjoys a reputation for sageliness, the day of the way's decline has already arrived. 3014/135/26, 2814.27 One who desires to have a posthumous reputation invariably performs good deeds. One who desires to perform good deeds invariably initiates various undertakings. If undertakings are initiated, then you will abandon the public good and pursue self-interest and will spurn techniques and rely on yourself. Desiring to solicit praise for good deeds and establish a reputation for worthiness, your governance will not comply with precedent, and your undertakings will not be in accord with the seasons. When governance does not comply with precedent, it will elicit numerous criticisms. When undertakings do not accord with the seasons, they will not be meritorious. When criticisms are numerous and merit rare, and you do not possess the means to stop such tendencies, then you will incite recklessness, even though you strive for what is appropriate, and you will act recklessly, even though you seek to hit the mark. Should your undertakings eventually succeed, it will not suffice to stop the criticisms. Should your undertakings eventually fail, it will suffice to cause you distress. 31 Thus, if you value doing what is approved equally with doing what is disapproved, you will have come close to the way. 14/136/1, 514.28 It is not the case that the world lacks trustworthy men. It is just that in the management of goods and the distribution of wealth, when you invariably seek to make calculations and determine distributions accordingly, you should consider that intending to be fair does not compare with being without intentions altogether. It is not the case that the world is devoid of honest men. It is just that in preserving valuable and precious things, as you invariably secure the doors and seal in the valuable and precious goods, you should consider that the desire to be honest does not compare with being without desires altogether. 14/136/7, 914.29 If a person points out your flaws, you will despise that person. But should a mirror reveal your imperfections, you will praise the mirror. Those who can interact with things and not take them personally can thus avoid encumbrances. 14/136/11 14.30 Gongsun Long was gifted with words but bought his way to fame. Den Shi was a clever disputer but confounded the laws. Suchin excelled at offering persuasions but lost his life. If you follow the way, you will excel at not being conspicuous. If you comply with its principles, you will be skillful at not gaining fame. Thus, those who rely on cleverness to compete for supremacy start out in yang but always end up in yin. 32 Those who rely on intelligence to govern a state start out in order but always end up in disorder. If you allow water to flow downward, who cannot regulate it? But should you force it to flow upward, without exceptional skill, you will not be able to do so. Thus, when outer ornamentation prevails, inner substance is concealed. When artful depravity succeeds, uprightness is blocked. 14/136/13, 1614.31 Moral potency can be used to cultivate oneself, but it cannot be used to make others tyrannical. The way can be used to order oneself, but it cannot be used to make others disorderly. Although you possess the inner qualities of a worthy or sage, if you do not encounter a tyrannical or disorderly age, you can perfect your person, but you cannot become a hegemon or king. Kings Tang and Wu encountered the tyranny of Ji and Zhao. Ji and Zhao were not tyrannical on account of Tang's and Wu's worthiness, but Tang and Wu encountered the tyranny of Ji and Zhao and so became kings. Thus, however worthy, whether a person becomes king invariably depends on encountering an opportune moment. Encountering an opportune moment means obtaining something by happening upon the right moment. It is not something you can seek and perfect with your knowledge and ability. 3314/136/18, 2114.32 The superior man cultivates his conduct yet makes certain that his goodness does not bring him fame. He extends his kindness yet makes certain that his humaneness does not bring him notice. Thus, the scholars practice goodness but do not know the source of their goodness. The people enjoy the benefits they receive but do not know the origins of their benefits. Thus, if you do not act, things will become regulated by themselves. If your goodness becomes manifest, functionaries will compete to establish reputations. If your benefits are seen to have a basis, the people will be with one another to obtain them. When these two types of competition arise, even though you are a worthy ruler, you will not be able to govern. Thus, the sage hides his tracks when doing good and conceals his reputation when acting humanely. 14/136/2325 14.33 Associating with foreign states to seek assistance and serving large states to seek security do not compare with establishing order within your borders and waiting for the opportune moment. As a general rule, when serving others, if you do not rely on jade and silk, you will surely use humble speech. If you serve others by means of jade and silk, once the goods have been given away, their desires may not be satiated. If you humble yourself and use servile speech, once the phrases have been spoken, the relationship may not be clinched. If you conclude a treaty and swear an oath, once the treaty has been established, it may be abrogated that very day. Even though you diminish your state by a zi or a chui 34 to serve others and do not follow the way of self-reliance, it will not suffice to keep your state intact. If you stop pursuing foreign policy schemes and truly attend to cultivating the affairs within your state, fully developing the resources of your land to increase the state reserves, exhorting your people to avoid death by repairing their city walls, so that superior and subordinates are of one mind, and ruler and ministers are of one will, so that together with your ministers you preserve the altars of the soil and grain and the people are inspired to remain within the state even when facing death. Then those who aspire to establish a reputation will not punish the innocent, and those who endeavor to bring benefit will not attack those who are difficult to defeat. Surely this is the way of keeping one's state intact. 14/136/27 14/137/3 The people have a way that they will uniformly follow, the people have laws that they will uniformly uphold. Rightness cannot make the people secure with one another, coercion cannot make the people be bound to one another. Thus a ruler is established to unify the people. When the ruler grasps the one, there is order; when he lacks constancy, there is disorder. 3514/137/5, 614.35 The way of rulership is not the means by which one acts, it is the means by which one does not act. 36 What does non-action mean? It means that the wise do not avail themselves of their position to intervene, the courageous do not avail themselves of their position to engage in violence, and the humane do not avail themselves of their position to confer kindness. This may be called non-action. Through non-action, you can grasp the one. The one is the root of the myriad things. It is the way that is unopposed. 14/137/6, 814.36 As a general rule, human nature is glittering and unruly when young, is violent and vigorous when mature, and loves what brings it benefit when elderly. In the course of one's life, a person undergoes these several alterations. How much more is it the case that rulers change the laws countless times and that states change their rulers? If people rely on their position in life to satisfy their likes and dislikes, they will not be able to bring order to those who take the low road. Thus, when the ruler loses the one and there is chaos, it is worse than when there is no ruler at all. 37 Thus, the Ode states, do not err. Do not forget. Follow the ancient regulations. 38 That expresses it. 14/137/8, 1114.37 When the ruler favors knowledge, he will turn his back on timeliness and rely on himself, he will abandon technique and rely on forethought. Since the things of the world are extensive while knowledge is limited, it is not possible to rely on what is limited to tend to what is extensive. When the ruler relies solely on knowledge, his mistakes will invariably multiply. Thus, favoring knowledge is an inferior policy. When the ruler favors courage, he will underestimate the enemy and be lax with his defensive preparations, he will rely on himself and dismiss the assistance of others. When he confronts a powerful enemy with the strength of only his one person and does not avail himself of the multitudes but instead relies solely on his own capabilities, invariably he will not survive. Thus, favoring courage is a dangerous policy. When the ruler favors charity, he will lack a fixed standard for making distributions. When there is no fixed standard of distribution above, resentments will not cease below. 39 If he increases taxes and fills the storehouses with surplus, the people he is helping will despise him. If he appropriates little and gives much, the quantity of his surplus will not be sufficient. Thus, favoring charity is a way that only gives rise to resentment. Humaneness, knowledge, courage, and strength 40 constitute the outstanding capacities of human beings, yet none suffices to rule the world. Considering the matter from this perspective, it will not suffice to rely on the worthy and capable. Yet it is possible to follow the techniques of the way. This is clear. 4114/137/13, 1814.38 The sage makes his mind victorious, the ordinary person makes his desires victorious. The superior man disseminates upright qi, the small man disseminates noxious qi. That which inwardly suits nature outwardly accords with rightness, complies with patterns when acting, and is not burdened by external things is upright qi. That which is attracted by succulent aromas and tastes, excited by sounds and colors, moved by happiness and anger, and unmindful of the dangers that lie ahead is noxious qi. Noxious qi and upright qi injure each other, desires and nature harm each other. They cannot both stand. Uphold one and the other falls. Thus the sage rejects desires and follows his nature. The eyes being fond of color, the ears being fond of sounds, the mouth being fond of taste, coming into contact with them i.e., color, sound, and taste, they delight in them without understanding the benefit or harm that lies therein. These are the desires. When eating is not good for the body, when hearing does not accord with the way, when seeing does not suit nature, and when the three sense organs of taste, hearing, and sight are in conflict with one another, what relies on rightness to bring them under control is the mind. When you cut out a boil, it cannot but be painful. When you drink toxic medicine, it cannot but be bitter. Yet you do these things because they are good for the body. If you are thirsty and drink too much water, it cannot but be pleasing, and if you are hungry and eat a huge meal, it cannot but be satisfying. Yet you do not do such things because they are harmful to the nature. In these four cases, the ears, eyes, nose, and mouth do not understand what to take and what to reject. When the mind controls them, each achieves what is appropriate. Considering the matter from this perspective, desires cannot be made victorious. This is clear. 4214/137/20, 2714.39 To regulate your body and nourish your nature, moderate your sleep and rest, be appropriate in your food and drink, harmonize your happiness and anger, and make suitable your movement and stillness. When you achieve the ability to carry out these things within the self, noxious qi will have no means to be produced. 43 Is not this similar to one who, fearing an asthmatic attack might occur or a skin ulcer burst forth, takes the proper precautions in advance? 14/137/27, 2914.40 Now ox meat in a ding tripot is boiling, so flies and gnats do not dare approach it. The jade of the Kunlun mountains is dense, so dirt and dust will not defile it. The sage does not have a rejecting mind, yet his mind is free of imperfections, and does not have an acquisitive beauty, yet his beauty is never lost. Thus, when offering sacrifices, he thinks of his parents but does not seek their blessings. When feasting guests, he cultivates reverence but does not think about how he will be repaid. Only those who do not strive after things are able to take possession of them. 14/137/29, 14/138/214.41 When those who occupy an honored position follow the way of public-mindedness and abandon personal preferences, they are recognized as honorable but not recognized as worthy. When those who possess large territories rely on enduring techniques and avoid secret stratagems, they are recognized as fair but not recognized as knowledgeable. Inside their states, they avoid violent acts that would arouse the resentment of their people. Outside their states, they avoid worthy conduct that would incite the jealousy of the lords of the land. The propriety between superior and inferior is compliant and does not deviate from what is proper. Those who would judge them are silenced, for what they look at is not visible. This is what is meant by the phrase hiding in the formless. If not those who hide in the formless, who then can give shape to what has form? 4414/138/4, 614.42 The way of the three dynasties was to follow the natural course of things. Thus, when you dredged the Yangtze and Yellow rivers, he followed the natural properties of the water. When Lord Millet scattered seed and planted grain, he followed the natural properties of the land. When Tang and Wu quelled violence and rebellion, they accorded with timeliness. Thus the empire can be attained, but it cannot be appropriated. The title of hegemon or king can be conferred, but it cannot be sought. If you rely on knowledge, others will dispute with you. If you rely on strength, others will contend with you. Though you cannot ensure that others will lack knowledge, you can ensure that others will not be able to use their knowledge against you. Though you cannot ensure that others will lack strength, you can ensure that others will not be able to use their strength against you. These two techniques have existed for a long time and have long been observed. Thus, if the ruler does not reveal his worthiness, the lords of the land will not be on guard. If he does not reveal his stupidity, the common people will not feel resentment. If the common people do not feel resentment, it is possible to obtain the usefulness of the populace. If the lords of the land are not on guard, it is possible to avail oneself of the world's opportune moments as they arise. When undertakings are commensurate with those of the multitudes, when achievements depend on the opportune moment to succeed, the sage will have nothing to do. Thus the Laozi says, tigers have no place to thrust their claws, rhinos have no place to butt their horns. 45. The passage likely refers to such things as this. 14/138/8, 1414.43 A drum does not absorb sounds, consequently it can produce various sounds. A mirror does not retain forms, consequently it can reflect various forms. Metal bells and stone chimes possess the ability to make sounds, but if you do not strike them, they will not sound. The flute and panpipes possess the ability to emit tones, but if you do not blow them, they will not sound. The sage internalizes what should be hidden and is not drawn out by things. When affairs arise, the sage regulates them, when things appear, the sage responds to them. 46. Those who adorn their exterior harm their interior. Those who cling to their emotions injure their spirit. Those who manifest their outer refinement obscure their inner substance. Those who do not for a moment forget their worthiness will invariably obstruct their nature. Those who within 100 paces do not forget their appearance will invariably encumber their bodies. Thus, when feathers and wings are beautiful, they injure the skeleton and marrow. When leaves and branches are beautiful, they injure the roots and stems. Of both being able to be beautiful, there is no instance in all the world. 47:14/138/16, 2014.44 Though heaven possesses light, it does not worry about the people's darkness. The people bore out doors and chisel out windows and, of their own accord, appropriate the light of heaven. Though earth possesses resources, it does not worry about the people's poverty. The people fell trees and cut grasses and, of their own accord, appropriate the resources of earth. Thus those who perfect potency and the way are like hills and mountains. Solitary and unmoving, travelers take them as their guides. They rectify themselves and find sufficiency in things. They do not offer charity to others, and those who use them likewise do not receive their kindness. Thus they are peaceful and able to endure. 48:14/138/22, 24:14.45 Since heaven and earth do not confer things, there is nothing to take. Since the sun and the moon do not exhibit kindness, there is nothing to resent. Those who enjoy exhibiting kindness invariably increase resentments, those who enjoy giving invariably praise taking. Only those who hide their tracks in non-action and follow the naturalness of heaven and earth can make their patterns victorious and abandon a love of reputation. Where reputation flourishes, the way does not operate. Where the way operates, people have no status. 49 Thus, where praise arises, insult follows. Where good appears, evil follows. 50:14/138/24, 27:14.46 Benefit is the starting point of harm. Good fortune is the harbinger of bad fortune. Only those who do not strive after advantage are free from disadvantage. Only those who do not strive after benefit are free from harm. 51 A marquis who strives to become a hegemon invariably will lose his standing as a marquis. A hegemon who strives to become a king invariably will forfeit his standing as a hegemon. Thus, a state considers remaining intact as the norm, becoming hegemon or king as the extraordinary exception. A person considers life as the norm, becoming wealthy or noble as the extraordinary exception. Only those who will not injure their kingdom for the sake of the world or harm themselves for the sake of a kingdom can be entrusted with the world. 14/138/29, 31:14.47 Those who do not understand the way abandon what they already possess and strive after what they do not yet possess. With a distressed mind and anxious thoughts, they try to realize misguided precedents. When good fortune arises, they feel happy. When bad fortune arises, they feel frightened. Their spirit is exhausted by various stratagems, their intelligence is wearied by various affairs. Bad fortune and good fortune sprout forth, yet to the ends of their lives they are undeterred, for what they themselves have caused, they turn around and blame others. Unhappy and anxious, their center is never balanced. They hold to what is unexamined. This is called the reckless life. 14/139/1, 314.48 When the people's ruler favors humaneness, those who lack merit will be rewarded, and those who are guilty will be pardoned. When he favors punishments, those who possess merit will be disregarded, and those who are innocent will be punished. Only the ruler who has no preferences punishes without causing resentment, exhibits kindness without eliciting gratitude, accords with the level and complies with the marking chord, and does not personally intervene. Like heaven and earth, there is nothing that he does not cover or support. Thus, what unifies and harmonizes is the Lord, what controls and punishes is the law. When the people receive their punishments yet feel no resentment or hatred, 52 This is called the way. Where the way is victorious, people have nothing to do. 14/139/5, 914.49 The clothing of the sage is neither long nor short. His conduct is neither extraordinary nor unusual. His clothing does not arouse notice. His conduct does not elicit observation, and his speech does not incite criticism. When successful, he is not ostentatious. When impoverished, he is not afraid. When honored, he is not showy. When ignored, he is not bereft. He is extraordinary yet does not appear unusual. He is always appropriate yet identifies with the multitudes. There are no means to name him. This is what is called great merging. 53:14/139/10, 1114.50 Whether ascending or descending, bowing with clasped hands or yielding to another, moving quickly or slowly, circulating forward or back, do so spontaneously. If they are not inherent to your person by nature, none among your spontaneous feelings will tally with them. Do those things that come spontaneously, and do not abandon the prescribed framework. That's it. What need is there to apply a precedent? Thus, those who sing spontaneously do not work at being sorrowful. Those who dance spontaneously do not strive at being graceful. Those who sing and dance but do not work at being sorrowful or graceful can do so because in all cases there is nothing rooted in their minds. 14/139/13, 1514.51 The adept gambler neither desires a win nor fears a loss. With a tranquil mind and settled will, he casts the dice in a uniform fashion, and his movements follow definite patterns. Though he does not always win, he invariably accumulates many tallies. Why is this so? It is because winning is determined by technique and not by desires. 14/139/17, 1814.52 The chariot driver does not covet being the very first, does not fear being dead last. He regulates the pace of the horse with his hands and harmonizes his mind with the horse. Though he does not always win first place, he invariably causes his horse to do its utmost. Why is this so? It is because winning is determined by technique and not by desire. For this reason, when you eradicate desire, technique will prevail. When you banish knowledge, the way will become established. 14/139/18, 2014.53 Too many deals impoverish the merchant. Too much artistry exhausts the craftsman. It is because their minds are not focused on one thing. Thus, when the span of a tree is great, its height is compromised. When the flow of a river is wide, its depth is compromised. If you possess knowledge but lack technique, though you bore within all you will never get through anything. If you possess 100 different kinds of skills but lack a single way, though you achieve things you will not be able to sustain your achievements. Thus the ode states, the good man, the superior man, his propriety is one. His propriety is one. His heart is as if bound. 54 How bound by oneness is the superior man. 14/139/22, 2414.54 Shun plucked the five-stringed chin and chanted the poems of the Southern Airs section of the Odes and thereby governed the world. The Duke of Zhou, before the fine meats could be removed from in front of him and before the bells and drums could be taken down from their suspension cords, had already assisted King Cheng in pacifying the world. 55 If a person maintains 100 mu of land, he will have no time for leisure, but neither is there anything that would induce him to move away. But if you rely on the one man to listen to petitions from the whole world, every day there will be an excess of work, and so governance will be deficient. Thus he employs others to manage things for him. 5614/139/26, 2814.55 One who occupies a revered position is like the impersonator of the dead at a sacrifice, one who has an official post is like the invoker. Though the impersonator of the dead is capable of skinning a dog or roasting a pig, he does not do so. Thus, if he is not able to do such things, nothing is lost. Though he understands the proper arrangement of the dishes and platters used to offer sacrifices and the proper sequence in which the various types of millet are offered, he does not instruct others in these matters. Thus if he is incapable of instructing others, nothing is lost. One who is incapable of offering prayers and invocations cannot be compelled to assume the responsibilities of the invoker, yet there is no harm in such a person acting as the impersonator of the dead. One who is incapable of driving a chariot cannot be compelled to assume the responsibilities of a charioteer, yet there is no harm in such a person acting as the rider on the left. Therefore, the more revered the position, the more idle the occupant. The more significant the post, the fewer duties it entails. It is similar to stringing a chain, the short strings are made tight, but the long strings must be looser. 14/140/1, 414.56 Non-action is the substance of the way. Following behind is the outward form of the way. Those who do not act control those who act, this is called technique. Those who follow behind control those who take the lead, this is called the proper sequence of things. If you rely on technique, you will be strong. If you understand the proper sequence of things, you will be calm. Now when it came to giving away Mr. Bien's jade disc, 57 when he had not yet obtained it, Mr. Bien was ahead. When he pleaded to present it and would not give up despite his indignation, he was behind. If 3 men live together and 2 begin to quarrel, each will think he is right, and neither will listen to the other. Though the 3rd man is a fool, he will invariably resolve the dispute from the sidelines. This is not due to his intelligence but is because he was not fighting. If 2 men begin to fight and a weakling stands at their side, if he helps one man, that man will win. If he aids the other man, that man will avoid defeat. Though the 2 fighters are strong, invariably the outcome is controlled by the single weakling. This is not due to his courage, but due to the fact that he does not fight. Looking at it from this perspective, that those who follow behind control those who take the lead and that those who are still defeat those who are excitable is due to following the proper sequence of things. To defy the way and abandon the proper sequence of things, hoping thereby to encounter good luck, to alter constant norms and change precedents. Relying on your intelligence in your desire to cover up for yourself, to pass over your own errors and to take credit when you hit the mark, to conduct yourself from a position of darkness and recklessly change things, to remain throughout your life unaware, such actions are called reckless. 2. Be dissatisfied with misfortune and satisfied with good fortune, to regret committing errors and feel satisfied when you achieve merit, to push ahead and not know to return, this too is called reckless. 14/140/6, 1414.57 When your circles coincide with the compass. When your squares coincide with the carpenter's square, when your going constitutes ferocity, when your stopping constitutes civility, you will be able to lead a small number of people, but you will not be able to lead the multitudes. When you raise knotweed in rows, when your ceremonial cups are furnished with pedestals, when you measure out millet and pound it to remove the husk, when you count out rice to prepare for steaming it, you will be able to govern a household, but you will not be able to govern a state. When you wash the cup before eating from it, when you clean the goblet before drinking from it, when you bathe before offering up food, you will be able to nourish the elderly of your household, but you will not be able to offer a feast to the 3 armies. 14/140/16, 1814.58 If you are not unassuming, you cannot govern what is great. If you are not simple, you cannot unite the multitudes. The greatest music is invariably unassuming. The greatest rites are invariably simple. Unassuming, you thus may be like heaven. Simple, you thus may be like earth. The greatest music provokes no resentment. The greatest rites do not evoke censure. All within the four seas will attach themselves to your rule, and thus you will be able to become emperor. 14/140/20, 2114.59 When the mind is agitated, though provided with a well-made bed and soft mats, you will not feel comfortable. Though provided with a meal of wild rice and succulent beef, you will not find the taste good. Though provided with the music of the chin and esse, and the piping of the flute, you will not feel joy. Only when vexations dissipate and agitations disappear will food taste good, a bed feel peaceful, a dwelling feel secure, and wanderings be joyful. Looking at it from this perspective, nature has the means to be joyful, and the means to be sorrowful. Now if you try to promote what cannot bring joy to your nature and you harm what brings joy to your nature, though enriched by possessing the world and revered as the Son of Heaven, you will not be able to avoid becoming a sorrowful person. In all cases, human nature enjoys peace and quiet and dislikes discord and noise, it enjoys rest and relaxation and dislikes toil and hard work. When the mind is consistently free of desires, it is said to be peaceful. When the body is consistently free of tasks, it is said to be resting. If you allow the mind to wander in peace and quiet and abandon the body to leisure, thereby awaiting heaven's decree, within you will find joy. And without you will be free from worries. Even something as grand as the world will not be sufficient to change your unitary vision. Should the sun or moon be eclipsed, it will not be sufficient to compel you to change your intentions. Thus, though lowly, it is as if you were honored, though impoverished, it is as if you were wealthy. 14/140/23, 2814.60 The greatest way is devoid of form. The greatest humaneness is devoid of affection. The greatest disputation is devoid of sound. The greatest honesty is devoid of modesty. The greatest courage is devoid of haughtiness. When you do not abandon these five, you are heading in the right direction. 14/141/114.61 When armies contend with too many orders, they will grow chaotic. When wine drinking is under too many constraints, there will be disputes. When armies grow chaotic, they will be rooted. When there are disputes, there will be mutual harm. Therefore, what begins as beautiful and elegant always ends up vulgar and vile. What begins joyfully always ends up sorrowfully. Yet things that begin in simplicity invariably end up in perfect harmony. Now suppose you prepare good wine and savory food to fete your guests and greet them with a modest bearing and humble words, hoping in this way to join with them in happy concord. Yet while contending to fill your guest's cup, contrary to expectations, a quarrel ensues. In the course of the quarrel, both parties are injured, arousing the enmity of each other's clans for 3 generations. Thus contrary to expectations, you have elicited the very thing you despise. Such are the dangers of wine. 14/141/3, 614.62 The shortcoming of the odes lies in its partiality, the shortcoming of the music lies in its critiques, the shortcoming of the rites lies in its criticisms. 5814/141/814.63 It is not the case that the G tone lacks a U sound or that the U tone lacks the G sound. Of the 5 tones, none is without overtones, but it is the dominant tone that determines the name of a specific note. Thus, humaneness and rightness, wisdom and courage are equally possessed by the sage, yet they all contribute to the single designation of the sage, all speak of his greatness. 14/141/10, 1114.64 Yang Qi arises in the northeast and culminates in the southwest. Yin Qi arises in the southwest and culminates in the northeast. From their inception the evolutions of yin and yang are synchronized. Daily the one that is waxing strengthens within its own category. Moving slowly and keeping equidistant from each other, One becomes hot enough to melt sand, the other becomes cold enough to freeze water. Thus, the sage is cautious and circumspect concerning what he accumulates. 14/141/13, 14:14.65 Water comes out of the mountains and flows to the sea, grain grows in the fields and is stored in granaries. The sage observes the beginning of things and knows their end. 14/141/16, 17:14.66 We offer up astringent mushrooms from a sitting mat, we offer up dark wine in a zun goblet, we offer up raw fish on a zeo stand, we offer up unsalted soup in a dough vessel. Such foods neither please the ears or eyes nor suit the palate or belly, yet the former kings valued them, because they attended first to the root and only afterward to the branches. 14/141/19, 21:14.67 When the sage encounters things in the world amid their thousand alterations and myriad evolutions, he invariably relies on what never transforms to respond to what is always transforming. Cold and heat stand in opposition to each other. During the season of intense cold, the ground cracks and water freezes, yet fire's capacity to burn is not diminished as a consequence. During the season of intense heat, stones melt and metal fuses, yet fire's capacity to burn is not enhanced as a consequence. The alterations of cold and heat neither harm nor benefit his person, for his inner substance is unchanging. 14/141/23, 25:14.68 The sage constantly follows behind and does not take the lead, he constantly responds and does not initiate, he does not advance to seek after things, nor does he retreat to decline things. I follow the times for 3 years, when the times departed, there I would go. I fled the times for 3 years, so the time was at my back. I have no discarding or seeking, in the center I find my place. The way of heaven is without affection, it gives only to those who have potency. 59 Those who possess the way do not lose the opportune moment to accommodate others, and those who do not possess the way lose the opportune moment to accommodate others. If you rectify yourself and await your fate, once a propitious moment arrives, you can neither welcome nor oppose it. Whether you impede it or seek convergence with it, once the opportune moment passes, you cannot pursue it or change its course. Thus, you will not say, I have done nothing and yet the empire remains distant. Nor will you say, I desire nothing yet the empire does not come to me. 14/141/27, 14/142/314.69 In ancient times, those who preserved themselves rejoiced in their moral potency and forgot their lowly status, therefore fame could not alter their wills. They rejoiced in the way and forgot their poverty, therefore profit could not disturb their minds. 60 Though concerns for fame and profit filled the world, it did not suffice to alter their wills. Thus, they were pure and able to be joyous, they were tranquil and able to live peacefully. Thus, those who govern themselves are those with whom you may speak of the way. 14/142/5, 614.70 Now the difference between your own life and the time dating back to the great vastness is distant indeed. The difference between your own death and the eternity of heaven and earth is immense indeed. To expend the lifespan of a single person worrying about the chaos of the world is like worrying that there is insufficient water in a river and trying to augment it with one's tears. The turtle lives for 3,000 years, whereas the mayfly does not live more than 3 days. Now if you rely on the mayfly to augment the turtle's life, people will surely laugh at you. Thus, those who stop worrying about the chaos of the world and simply delight in governing themselves are those with whom you may speak of the way. 61:14/142/6, 914.71 When the superior man does good, he cannot ensure that it will bring good fortune, when he refuses to do evil, he cannot ensure that it will not bring bad fortune. If good fortune arrives, since it is not something he sought, he does not proclaim his achievements. If bad fortune arrives, since it is not something he elicited, he does not regret his actions. If he should cultivate himself inwardly to the utmost and still adversity and bad fortune arrive, it is due to heaven and not the person. Therefore, within himself his mind is constantly tranquil and still, and his moral potency is unencumbered. Even the barking of a dog cannot startle him because he naturally trusts his genuine responses. Thus, those who understand the way are not confused, those who understand fate are free from anxiety. 6214/142/11, 1414.72 When the ruler of a state possessing 10,000 chariots passes away, we bury his bones in the wild lands and worship his spirit in the Mingtang. This is because the spirit is more highly honored than the physical form. Thus, when the spirit regulates, the physical form complies, but when the physical form prevails, the spirit dissipates. Acuity and keenness may be employed, but you must revert to the spirit. This is called grand vacuity. 6314/142/16, 17.